This is the easiest way to defeat the Storm King. I want to start off this video with some very important tips or tricks. So by leveling up your village, you'll talk to Dr. Boraska, who's actually going to upgrade your compass for you. When you get this brand new compass or this upgraded compass, what it actually is going to allow you to do is open up your map to find any and all storm areas on your map. Not only that, but it'll also show you where Raven is located and where the Storm King is based on the differences in all of their icons. Now, in order to progress through all of this, you're going to use the journal that you can find after tabbing or going towards your map and inventory section. When you guys open up your journal, you're going to find every single quest that you need to complete in order to even get yourself towards the final boss. That has to do with collecting or making some things that are already in the game, as well as doing some brand new quests that just started with this new update. Now, just to cover some of the annoying ones at first that a lot of people are struggling with, popping 5 storm buds are going to look like these pink balloons that come out of the ground. They're going to be very easy to break because you could either shoot them with a crossbow or just walk up to them as they explode on contact. Collecting 10 storm fruit is very easy because they just look like very juicy plants and you can walk up to them and collect very fast. I just rewatched that clip and I missed so many of them to my left. Now, in order to explore the Storm King area, what you need to do is actually walk up to where his gateway is, and you just have to interact with this, and that completes that part of the quest. Now, I'm bringing this clip back up because I believe those are the only real confusing ones when it has to do with getting all of your journal steps done. Outside of that, you can actually click on whatever journal quest that you actually are on, and it should show you some sort of teaser image to help you along the way. Now, before we cover the Storm King and even jumping into the dungeons, we have to talk about the runes that we're going to put onto our weapons when it comes to these fights. Because believe it or not, there's a new 4th item that we're going to be using on this that a lot of you guys would be overlooking for your weapons. When it comes to using your crossbow or your sword, I recommend using Berserk, Damage, and Durability Tier 3. But as far as that 4th rune slot, I actually recommend using Destruction Tier 3, and there's a secret reason as to why we're doing this, but we'd only do this during our dungeon and our Storm King raids. Now, as I explained earlier, there are newer runes that have been added into LEGO Fortnite Odyssey, but for right now, when it comes to going through these raids, you want to have Destruction on here because when you guys are fighting inside of these dungeons, you're going to have these respawners that pop up, and with Destruction on, even on your crossbow, you have a chance to just one-shot those, which makes these dungeons so much easier to fight in. And when we actually get ourselves to the Storm King fight later in this video, you're going to see that you're actually able to even one-shot his weak points, which makes the entire fight go by so much easier. Now, before we go and fight the Storm King, something that you absolutely need to do is fight in some of these dungeons to get yourself some rift crystals. That's going to help actually upgrade your weapons to legendary status, which is a very big help in this mode. Now, in order to get to the dungeons, you want to go to the very center of these storm areas and enter into the new rift that is there. I definitely recommend putting down a rift station nearby. That way you can just quickly teleport here if you ever do die in these dungeons, because they are very difficult. So every time that you complete a level in the dungeon, you're going to get access to the next part, but also get one of these gold chests that gives you a bunch of materials that you're absolutely going to need later. Now, at the very end of one of those dungeon raids, you're actually going to fight a new boss. Now, this is kind of a mini boss, and in my opinion, he's not very difficult to kill as long as you have a crossbow on you. You see that really he tries to do melee attacks, but outside of that, when he does his other attacks like this, they're very easy to dodge and get away from. So what I recommend doing is having a crossbow, and whenever you see one of these pink electric lights that are coming towards your way, just simply run out of that direction. Using a crossbow will make it almost impossible for him to ever get close to you or hit you, and you should be able to attack him really without taking any damage. Defeating him will actually get you a rift crystal as well as an Eye of the Storm, and then once again, you'll get another golden chest that you have an opportunity to get even more rift crystals from and even more Eye of the Storms. So go in here, collect as many of these as you can, and just grab that super easy loot. So make sure that you're taking full advantage out of these rift stations and placing these down in the front of every single dungeon. When you guys get to the center of the storm areas, you can place these down next to the rifts to make life so much easier. So now that you've completed a lot of your quests from your journal, as well as completed the dungeons, you can go up to that old teleporter that I showed you guys and put the Eye of the Storm on here in order to enter in and to try to fight the Storm King. So now let's cover a few things that you need to bring along with you. The top food item that I find to bring is going to be the Storm Fruit Nectar. It gives you 4 health bar extremely quickly. You could do this really with any type of juice or drink item in the game. Food items just take way too long to eat. When it comes to the Storm Fruit, it's not terrible, but it only gives you 1 total heart, so I would stay away from those. The Eye of the Storm and the Rift Crystal are 2 items that you are absolutely looking to pick up from any enemies that you guys are killing in there. And finally, you do not want to leave the boss fight without picking up the Shatterhorn Fragment. To make things even more challenging, once you open up this portal, you only have 1 hour to defeat him, and if you do, you then have to wait 24 hours for him to come out again. So fighting the Storm King truly is all of the dungeon fights combined, which is the real reason why we wanted to do those before we got to the Storm King. What I mean by that is this is going to happen in waves similar to how it worked inside of the dungeon. So you're going to see that enemies are going to spawn as well as their rift spawners, which is why it's important that you do have destruction on your crossbow or sword, because that means normally you're not going to have to hit these parts 4 or 5 times. So every single time that they spawn those, you want to make sure that you're destroying those waves as well as those spawners to go to the next part of the fight. Now don't freak out too much when the Storm King finally does arrive from that tornado that he was inside of. Shooting him is not going to do any damage until you can see his weak points, and you'll know exactly when they're live. Not only because there will be a bar on the top of the screen, but also because it's going to be a bright yellow spot on top of him. Multiple times throughout the fight, he's actually going to change the map. So make sure that when he shoots you up into your glider, you are safely landing directly back onto the platform. Now, the early on attacks that the Storm King is going to do are very easy to get away from, and that's because there's no other distractions on the map during this time. He's going to do this lightning beam that you could watch him charge up to do, and he's also going to throw these rocks at you. Now, the way that this works is pretty simple. All that you need to do is when you see him pick up these rocks, or when you see him pick up that lightning beam, is simply move out of the way. Now, I talked about his weak points earlier because this is going to be where you can actually attack the Storm King. And something that you're going to notice is that any time that he has a weak point on him, he's going to do some sort of attack or some sort of movement that leaves it wide open and easy for you to hit. Using a crossbow actually isn't as easy as you would think when it comes to this, but when you have destruction on there, you could see that that entire yellow bar that was at the top of the screen was instantly destroyed with just 1 single hit. So don't get used to how easy that first wave was, because in the second one, he actually starts to throw a few more tricks at you. Not only is he going to have these respawners out there for even more enemies to attack you, but he's going to be attacking you at the same time as them. On the last wave, he did not even mess with you when he had other enemies out there, but now he's going to be throwing his rocks at you, using his electric beam, while also having enemies out there and spawning in little decor items that are going to get in your way. So my best recommendation here is to focus in on that respawner so that you don't have even more enemies show up, then focus on the enemies, and after you've cleared all of them out, I would then focus on that weak point. Now, the next stage of this is actually another attack that gets launched by the Storm King, as he comes out with multiple attacks throughout the process. He's still going to do his basic attack, which is going to be that lightning beam, as well as throwing a rock at you. But the next thing that he's going to do is actually a meteor shower down on the map. Now, this isn't the hardest thing to avoid in the game, because you will see these black shadows show up underneath of you for you to avoid. However, it's hard to focus on that while also focusing on the enemy, as well as then him throwing rocks at you or using that electric beam. So what I would recommend doing is making sure that you are able to look at your screen towards the center of your screen so that you can see underneath of you if a rock is landing on you, while you still go through those other steps, which is focusing on those rift spawners, then the enemies, and then finally the Rift King. Now, the final part of the weak point is actually probably the hardest part of this entire fight. And the reason why I say that is that this is where things get a little bit more hectic and a little bit more fast-paced. You're going to be fighting the Storm King, who is going to be non-stop attacking you, as well as almost non-stop meteor strikes from up top, as well as even more of these respawn points coming onto the map. My best recommendation for this part that you could probably use the entire time that you're fighting the Storm King is constantly be running in a circle. What that's going to do is make sure that none of the melee enemies are able to get close to you. Anytime that the meteors are coming down from the sky, you're going to very easily be able to avoid, and anytime he does one of his jumps or one of his different attacks that he does, you're going to be able to easily avoid it by just simply running around the map. Now, the best time to go ahead and hit him in his weak point is just simply going to be when he stops his attack. If he does one of his throwing attacks or he does one of his beams, there is going to be a period where he just stops and allows you to pretty much hit him. So now that you've actually gone ahead and you've destroyed that rift horn off of him, you're going to be sitting here and fighting directly against him. Now, in this fight here, there are no weak points. So all that means is if you have a crossbow, simply hit your shots. Run around in a circle just like we did in the last few rounds and aim directly at his chest. You want to make sure that you're really not wasting any of your shots here, because the more the time goes on, the more likely it is that you end up making a mistake or getting hit by multiple items at once. So what I would focus on is sprinting around in a circle, avoiding all of the meteors that are constantly coming down from the sky, avoiding his basic attacks, and then just shooting directly at his chest. It does take a very long time, even with a very high damage type of crossbow, but once you guys are able to get the hang of this, you should be able to avoid absolutely everything and eventually take them out. Now, believe it or not, this was my first ever attempt on my expert mode world to defeat the Storm King, and honestly, I kind of found that the caves that we had to destroy were much more difficult than the ultimate fight, but I do think that they just overall prepared me a little bit better for it. After defeating the Storm King, he should respawn every 24 hours. Not only do you get this nice screen here, but you get a ton of really solid mythic items, as well as getting yourself some new craftables and a Storm King trophy. So make sure that you open this chest before you go on out, collect every single one of these items, and now you officially know how to destroy the Storm King and could do this every single day for even more and better loot. Now, the first time that I killed the Storm King, I actually got this mythical pickaxe, which allows me to use it kind of like Thor's hammer. I could charge it up and throw it at different rocks on the map, catch it on the way back, and immediately throw it at another rock to instantly destroy it. So make sure that you guys are getting comfortable with the Storm King, because you guys are going to need it in order to unlock the Shatterhorn sword or other Shatterhorn weapons and tools in the game, as they have by far the absolute best rune stack that you can have because of the zapping 4 rune that goes on to these that actually will do damage to 4 enemies at the exact same time. I hope that you guys enjoyed today's video. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, guys, this was Crafty, and I'm out. Peace. But YouTube thinks that you're going to like that video that's up there in the top left. And you may also want to hit that subscribe button in the top right. Hope you guys enjoyed. Peace.